In just a moment, David Kaplinski is going to get us all oriented to our service. I'll just say hello to those who I can see on the screen here. So hello to Joanna and Tyval and Joe. It's nice to see you. A wonderful crowd here on the field.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get started with Minha on page 214 in the Lev Shalem, 226 in Sim Shalom, in the full Sim Shalom, and 558 in the weekday Sim Shalom.
I think that one's probably not connected into the system, that microphone.
It's not connected
just
to the
a little
system?
bit closer. Yeah, you just have to talk a little closer into it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
One more time, 214 Lev Shalem, 226 full Sim Shalom, and 558 for weekday Sim Shalom.
אשר ישבי ביתך, עוד יללו חסדה, אשר העם שככה לו, אשר העם שאדוני אלוהיו, תהילה לדוד. תהילת אדוני ידבר בי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך ים יתה ויד עולם, הללויה, ובלציהו גואל שב יפש רב יעקב, נאום אדוני וניז. ואתה קדוש יושב תהילות ישראל, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. ותישאני רוח, ושמע אחרי כל רעש גדול, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ויפתחו בך יודעי שמך, כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר, יכתב ויתקדש שמי רבה, וילמד דברה קראתי, וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביומי חון, וחיי תכל בית ישראל, וגלה בזמן קריב, אמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישבח, ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילם ינקוב ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ואני תפילתי לך אדוני את רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך. ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל, וקדושתו. גדלו לאדוני איתי, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו, לך אדוני גדולה וגבורה ותפארת ונצח והוד, ככל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני המלכה, ומתנשא לכל לראש, רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישחוו לאדם רגליו קדוש הוא, רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו.
Parashat Terumah can be found on page 485 in your Eitz Chaim Chumash. If you're in some other book, it's chapter 25 of Exodus, of Shemot.
Yeah, sure, whatever works. We can here. You can stay there and I'll.
Okay. Along here for people to know what pages.
Great. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bacharbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ויקחו לי תרומה מאת כל איש אשר ידבנו ליבו. תיקחו את תרומתי, וזאת התרומה אשר תיקחו מאיתם זהב וכסף ונחושת ותכלת וארגמן ותורת שני ושש ועזים ואורות אלים מאודמים ואורות תחשים ועצי שיטים.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ben Chaim Feibel. Umat Lechaya. Aliyah Shniya.
Page 487, verse 6.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam vahed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. שמן למאור ושמים לשמן המשחה ולקטורת הסמים אבני שוהם ואבני מילולים לאפוד ולחושן ועשו לי מקדש ושכבתי בתוכם ככל אשר אני מראה אותך את הבנית המשכן ואת תבנית כל כליו וכן תעשו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Rivka Rachel. Rav Richa Rachel Bat Gai Shimshon. It's a Marchana. Aliyah Shlishit.
Page 487, verse 10.
Yasu Aaron. Baruch hu et Adonai Havarach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Lelam Vahed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
ועשו ארון עצי שיטים 250 אורכו ואמה וחצי רוחבו ואמה וחצי קומתו וציוויתי אותה זהב טהור מבית ומחוץ תצפנו ועשית עליו זר זהב סביב ויצקת לו 4 טבעות זהב ונתת על 4 פעמותיו ושתי טבעות על צלו הבאות האחת ושתי טבעות על צלות השנית ועשית בדי עצי שיטים וציפית אותה זהב והבאת את הבדים הטבעות על צלות הארון לשאת את הארון בהם בטבעות הארון יהיו הבדים לא יסורו ממנו ונתת אל הארון את העדות אשר אתן אליך.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'Chayei Olam Nata B'Tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Yamdu Amakbiya Bagolel. Please rise as we lift and wrap the Sefer Torah. V'zot HaTorah asher sa Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. Hila machazikim ba v'tom ha'meusha. V'tom ha'meusha. V'chol netivotei shalom. Darchei noam. V'chol netivotei shalom.
We have a few people today who have asked to have El Males said in honor of the anniversary of the death of a loved one, their yard site. So Paula, let's have you come forward, please, and take. You want to take the Torah from David's arms, or would you rather?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Wonder how I mean, would you like me to take a Male on
I'm gonna try, but you'll stop me.
is that okay?
Like, I'm
Let's
not.
bring this microphone
I
forward
don't
for
have
you.
a beautiful voice,
Oh, but it's an honor. Okay.
so, but I need the words.
It's page 73.
Okay, thank you. This is for my mother. El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bevrominim, Hamenetze Menuchat, Nechona Tachat, Kanpe Hashchina, Bema'alot Kedoshim Torarim, Zohar Rakia, מזכירים לנשמת דבורה בת רבקה ויצחק שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הסתירים I can't. Harachamim. I lost my place. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. Hastireha besanter kanfe leolamim utzror bitzror hachaim et nishmata. Adonai hu lachata v'tanuach b'shalom al mashkava v'nomar amen.
Amen. Paula, is there a particular memory of your mom, now gone 21 years, that you'd like to share?
You know, my mother, there were no forbidden subjects with my mom. You could talk about anything with her. And her home was always welcome to everybody. It was packed with people all the time. And between her and I, we could talk about anything. I called my mom every single day on my way home from work. Called my husband, what are we doing for dinner? And then called my mom. And I really just cherished the love that she shared with the world and with our family and with me and my family. Thank you.
Yehi zichra baruch, may her memory be for an eternal blessing.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll have Alan come forward and take the Torah from your arms because he also has an Almali to be said today. By the way, is there anybody else here on the field who also has a yard site today to be marked? Okay.
You got it.
You can stand up straight.
Yeah, just want to see a memory. Male, female. Okay, here we go. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtze Menchana Nechana Tacha Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Todim Kezar Kiyamas Hirim, Benishmat Yehudit Bat Zevu Fruma, Shahachala Olama, Began Eden Temenuchata, Anabaharachamim, Hastireha, Besetek Nafecha Lolamim, Utror Bitzor Hechayim, et Nishmata, Adonai Hunachlata, V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen.
Alan, who is this Almali for?
This is for my sister Julia, who died 18 years ago. She was able to survive ileitis. She was able to survive breast cancer, but she was not able to survive when she had hepatitis C as a result of blood transfusions in the 70s. Her goal was always to live longer than my father, who died when he was 44. And I remember on her 45th birthday, she was just very excited that she had lived a year longer than our father. And she was very active in the Jewish community, first at Beth Chaim Chadashim and then at Kol Ami, where she was the ritual director for many years. And was very tuned Jewishly and a very good woman, and I miss her. I do indeed miss her.
Thank you for reminding us that every survivor's story, sadly, ultimately ends in stories of memories. And thank you for sharing those sweet memories. Yehi zichra baruch, may her memories forever be for a blessing. And let's ask if there's anybody who's on Zoom who wants to indicate that they have a yard site to be recalled this week with Almale. Just wait a second and see if there's anyone who wants to chime in. And if not, then I'll take the Torah from you, Alan. If you want to steal the microphone back, you can call pages again.
Okay. Yeah. We're continuing on page 221 with the returning the Torah to the Ark, and it's 232 in Slim Shalom and 570 in the full Sim Shalom. Thank you, Joey. I'm getting this microphone page number situation together.
Hallelujah, Shema Tonai, Kiniska, Shema Levado, Dollars for Shemayim Yerimkin. Tehila Lecho Chasintav, Livnei Yisraelam Karovo, Hallelujah, Ledavi Bismor. Mi huze melech hakavod Adonai Tzevaot, hu melech hakavod Sela uvnucho Yomar. Hashivinu Adonai lecha v'nashuva chadeshamenu kekedem.
Chatzi Kaddish is on page 222 in the Lev Shalem, 233, Slim Shalom, 572 in the full Sim Shalom, followed by the Amidah for the afternoon on the next few pages.
Yitkata v'yitkata shemer haba, v'yam divra kirutei, v'yam lich malchutei, v'chayichon v'yomechon, u'chayidecho beit Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kariv, v'imru amein, yeshamei rabba mevorach, v'yalam olamei almaya, yitvarach v'yishabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal, shemei tekudesha berichu, Leila mincha birchata v'shirata, shishbechata v'nechamata, Jamiram b'yama v'imru, Amen.
repetition of the Amidah. We'll continue on page 223 in Lev Shalom, 234 in Slim Shalom, and 574 in Full Sim Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Gibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Mevigo El Livnei V'Neihem L'man Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Fokei Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufokei Tzara atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayim Itim atah Rav Le'Oshia Mashiva Ruach U'Moridak Hashem Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayim Itim B'Rachamim Rabim Samech Novelim V'Rofei Cholim U'Matir Hasurim U'Mkayim U'Mashol Lishenei Afar Mi Chamocha Bal Gevurot U'Mido Melech Melech V'Mit U'Chayei U'Matzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman Atah L'Chayot Mitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayi Hamitim Nikadesh et Shimcha B'Olam Keshem Shemakdishim Ota B'Shmi Marom Kagatul Yad Neviecha V'Karazel Ze Ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzvaot Melech Haaretz Kevodo Lumatam Baruch Yom Meru Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimekomo Divrei Kodesh Katuv Leimor Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Zihon, lidor vador, Hallelujah, lidor vador, nagigod lecha, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Be seated.
אתה אחד ושמך אחד ומי כעמך ישראל ומי כעמך ישראל כל אחד בארץ תפארת גדולה ותרת ישועה יום מנוחה וקדושה לעמך נתת יום מנוחה וקדושה לעמך נתת אברהם יגל יצחק ירנן יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו מנוחת אהבה ונאווה מנוחת אמת ואמונה מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ובטח מנוחת שלמה שאתה רוצה בה יכירו בניך וידעו כי מתחייך ממנוחתם ועל מנוחתם יקדישו את שמך אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצי במנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך שבענו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך וינוחו בך ישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת רצי אדוני אלוהינו במלך ישראל ובתפילתם וישבת עבודה לדביר ביתך ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון מודים אנחנו לך שתהו אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך ואמרכם כי לא תמו חסדיך מעולם קיווינו לך ויעל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וכל החיים יודוך סלע ויהללו את שמך באמת הישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולחנאי להודות שלום רב על ישראל עמך ולכל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון אהרון לכל השלום וטוב עיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. צדקתך צדק לעולם, ותורתך אמת, וצדקתך אלוהים עד מרום, אשר עשית גדולות, אלוהים מי כמוך, צדקתך כרעיל, משפטך תהום רבה, דם ובהמה, תושיע אדוני.
Kaddish Shalem, page 230, 247, or 596.
יתכתב ויקדש מרבה, ויעמד דברה קראתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון במכון וחיית וכל בית ישראל, והגלה זמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולמי מיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתברך וישתמם ונעשה, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לעולם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, שישבחתה ונחמתה דמירם ביומה ואמרו אמן. תתקפל צלות עונותון לכל ישראל, קדם הבהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמיה וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Kaddish Tome, Mourner's Kaddish, is on page 232, 249, or 600.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen. Amen. Yasher Koach to Cantor Chorney for leading us. Yasher Koach to remind me your name. Rosemary for reading Torah so beautifully this afternoon. We're going to take a break and have some food for Sudash Lishit, and we'll be back in 5-10 minutes to learn some Midrash for next week.
But he still has an in at the mayor's office. Yeah. Given people do. Yeah, given that he knows the mayor.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're going to get this learning underway. Hope everybody on Zoom has the source sheets they need. They're on the bulletin, and you all will get the source sheets you need shortly. So we're back to next week's Midrash tonight, where we take a look at some of the Midrashic sources that are talking about the Parsha that we just read at Minha. So we had Mishpatim this week, and next week is Truma, the giving of gifts for the Mishkan, for the sanctuary in the desert. And so we're going to look a little bit at that. And kind of interestingly, the Midrashim that I saw are often very less focus on the gifts that we gave and more focus on the gifts given to us, namely the Torah. So you'll see sort of how the Midrashist kind of turns our gifts on its head and wants to concentrate on the major gift, kind of the ideal gift being the Torah, in comparison to also our lovely gifts to the Mishkan. So I'll pass these out for you. One sec. Yeah. Thanks, Peanut Gallery. I guess now I know how it feels. Okay, so as we're passing these sheets around, we'll just start with what we just read, which is just the first couple lines of Truma to give us a little framing. And oftentimes a lot of the Midrashim, especially the Amoraic Midrashim, the ones written by folks in Bavel and Eretz Israel around the 600s CE, they often are going to focus a lot on the first line of the Torah portion, and they'll do all sorts of midrashim, all sorts of different interpretations based on this first line. So this is no different. So the verses say, "Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, vayichu li truma me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo tichu et trumati." Right. So God spoke to Moses saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and have them take for me a gift," literally singular gift, but I think implied plural gifts, from every person whose heart is generous, who feels so inclined to do so. Take my gifts, right? So that's kind of the foundation, that we have this story of the Israelites having to give gifts for the Mishkan, and eventually we'll see that they bring too much, and Moses has to say, okay, enough, you're doing great, just to show how generous the people of Israel are in this quest. So we're going to see this kind of flipping on its head. So they're going to see is on this word vayikhu, right? Vayikhu, have them take, right, for me, vayikhu li. So Midrash Tanhuma, kind of have a brief Midrash first that we're going to look at quickly, and then one is from Tanhuma, and then the next one is from Shmot Rabbah. And Shmot Rabbah, I think, kind of like pulls out some of the details. Tanhuma seems to kind of like maybe be familiar with this Shmot Rabbah text and does kind of a brief of it, but we miss some details of why it's even talking about what it's talking about. So we'll kind of come back to see how they compare. Okay, so it says, "Vayichu li truma, zesha mar katuv, ki lekach tov natati lachem," right? And we may be familiar with that from putting the Torah away. Oftentimes that's sung. Ki lekach tov natati lachem. Right? Torati al tazovu being the next line. So, "For I have given you a good possession, do not forsake my teaching," right, is the following line. Torati al tazovu. So it says, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, "Shnei pirak matotin omdin ze im ze, echad biyado metachsa, ve'echad biyado pilpilin." All right, so we have, Rabbi Shimon has explained this verse, with this kind of parable. He says, once there were two merchants who were traveling together. One of them held a bolt of silk material in his hand, while the other held some pepper. They said to each other, let us exchange our merchandise. One took the pepper, and the other took the silk. What one of them had previously owned was no longer his, and that which the other had owned was likewise no longer his. Okay, and here's where we get the point. Aval haTorah eina ken, right? But the Torah is not like this, right? It's not an exchangeable thing in the exact same way. How is that so? Ze shoneh seder zeraim v'ze shoneh seder moed. Hishnu ze lazeh nimsa biyad ze shnaim ubiyad ze shnaim. Right? So if one person learns tractate zeraim, right, the tractate of seeds, of farming law, and the other one learns the tractate of the holidays, right? This is, I think, Mishnah, the whole section of Mishnah on holidays. If they teach it one to the other, we find that one of them knows both and the other one knows both, right? So it's not a commodity in the same way that you can trade some kind of resource to the other person. It's a kind of free resource. I can have it and you can have it at the same time. So that's the special gift of the Torah. And then so it ends, truly, is there any merchandise more valuable than this? Therefore, ki lekach tov natati lachem. Therefore, that's the meaning of I give you a good possession, right? So the Midrash is taking this root, lakach, right? The possession, the thing that you take, right? Which is exactly what God says for the Israelites, that they should take for themselves gifts and to get for me, right? That they're going to take it in their hands to dedicate as gifts for the Mishkan. And simultaneously, God has given us a good gift, and they're kind of comparing the very nice gifts that we gave to dedicate to God, and God gives right back, but gives a gift that is even beyond the material things that the Israelites were able to dedicate, because it's a gift that's not material. It can belong to all of us at the same time. Any thoughts or questions so far about this midrash? Why maybe the midrash decides to talk about the Torah and not about the gifts that we gave? Any thoughts on that? Yes. Sure. If you have a different question, go ahead. Yeah. Right. So we were saying that remind me your first name? Alan. Thank you, Alan. Forgive me on that one. So Alan was saying that that usually the way that it's translated is you'll bring for me gifts, right? But the word is actually you'll take for me gifts, which is usually more of the receiving end, as we see in something like lekach tov, right? The possession is actually something that we're giving away, and so that I think that's spot on. That they're playing on the fact that of this strange word for giving is actually taking. So there must be, I think they're seeing in this, there must be some kind of connection with the fact that the Torah is this thing that we received, and then in like some way we're giving back all that we can, which is possessions, not something as good as the Torah. Yes, Alan. Right. Yes, right. So Alan was also saying that the possession aspect comes up in the giving and the taking between the two merchants, right? That there's literally a give and take between them in their relationship. That it's also playing on that. Very nice. Very nice. Yes. Interesting. Right. Yes. Okay. So very good. So highlighting the difference between the things that we give temporarily are not comparable to the gifts that we take that are received forever. Right. Some things like the Torah that are possessions, but a more permanent possession than any physical possession that we could. Did I get that mostly right for you? Okay. Great. Cool. So let's continue on with what Shmot Rabbah does with this text and how it's similar and different. And we'll maybe there's a really great conclusion to it. So look out for that. So Shmot Rabbah says, "And they shall bring me gifts by chuli truma hadahu dichtiv." This is as it is written, "For I have given you a good possession. Do not forsake my teaching." So it starts out exactly the same. Do not forsake the purchase that I gave to you. When people buy things, their purchase has gold but no silver, or silver but no gold. But the purchase that I have to you has silver, as it is said, the sayings of God are sayings pure like smelted silver. It has gold, as it is said, more lovely than gold, and then much fine gold. That's almost English. Community translation is like that. People buy fields but not vineyards, and vineyards but not fields. But this purchase has in it both vineyards and fields, as it is said, your shoots are an orchard of pomegranates. Okay, so far, how is this analysis different than what we had in Tanhuma? Previously we had just kind of saying that these two guys are exchanging physical things, and the Torah is not like that. But what's different about this comparison here? Yeah. Right. So we're not talking about the exchange, but the value of what's exchanged. Very good. I think added on to that, the difference I see is that we're actually talking about the physical things. The Torah is being compared to physical objects, whereas Tanhuma said, no, it's not like any physical objects that there's, give and take in that way or trade in that way. It actually is. The best we can do is compare it to physical objects, right? It has gold in it, but it has everything that a physical object could have, right? Usually individual things only have one thing or the other. The Torah actually has a whole collection of these physical qualities of valuable, beautiful things. So I think it's a little different. It's like actually clinging a little bit more towards the physical. And I think also the line that we didn't read from the first verses of this parsha continues on and says, "Bring to me gold and silver and copper and all these different colored linens and things like that." So I think there's a little reference to the gifts that the Israelites gave, and the Torah has all of those qualities, not just one, not just bringing gold, not just bringing silver, but everything that you need, and even extends to fields and vineyards. Great. Any other thoughts, questions so far? Keep rolling. Okay. So the next part. Yesh lecha adam lokeach mikach uvenei adam einan yodin mahu. Okay, so this is an interesting section. Someone makes a purchase and others do not know what it is. Interesting situation. You bought something for Macy's and your friend's like, what the hell is that? Excuse my language. Okay, so aval misechar hasarsur nitvada malakach. Okay, so This is an interesting thing. There were kind of two translations built in here. We'll start with the reward. But the reward of the middleman makes it clear what he bought. Okay, so what does that mean? It also says, or the inebriation. So depending on if you read it with a sin or a shin, you get sachar or shechar, right? Or like shikor, right? Like someone who's drunk. So we'll see why either could work. Probably the reward is a more likely translation, but I thought it was kind of interesting and funny that that's a possibility. So the middleman makes it clear what he bought. What does that mean? So it is with the Torah. A person doesn't know what it is except from the reward or inebriation that Moshe took. As it is said, Moshe did not know that the skin of his face was radiant since he had spoken with him. Okay, so the idea is that Moses' glow when he gets the Torah kind of points to everybody, and Moses is the ultimate middleman between the people of Israel and God. The glow that he has is either his reward or his inebriation, which I think is just kind of funny that the glow is compared to, potentially to him being, drunk or having this kind of physical stimulation from God. So the fact that he is glowing is showing how precious the Torah is. It's made someone glow, right? People don't understand what it is until they saw the effect that it had on Moshe. And there are purchases that one who sells them is sold along with them. The Holy Blessed One said to Israel, I sell to you my Torah, and as if such a thing could be, I am sold along with it. As it is said, and they shall bring me gifts. And I think how are they saying that God is sold along with the Torah? Vayikhu li, right? That you will take for me. I mean, literally, you will take me with the Torah. Right, so again, there's something, even though this verse is discussing the Israelites giving, they read in this lakach, in this verb of taking, they can't disconnect it from the Torah, which is the ultimate taking, possession. And so we'll get a little bit more into this, but I think it's just a really interesting idea that God is sold along with the Torah, right? That it's a double deal. It's built in. Yes, Alan. Right. Say a little more how it shows that. Right. Yeah. Right. So it supports the fact that lakach really is the taking, the things that you really are holding on to. You're both kind of giving those individual things, but it's really about the things that you get to keep in the giving action, right? The Torah that you get to keep, that's part of this whole process of making the Mishkan. Okay, any other? Yes. Yeah. So we're getting some clarification. Right. So in the process of giving something, you actually get to take something out of it. It's the kind of classic idea that, the person who gives also receives some kind of good feeling or feeling of doing what's right. That within giving there is a taking that is more permanent than the thing that you just gave away. That you'll always remember that you gave that thing. Right. Okay, so yeah, it's complicated. Don't get me wrong, right? The whole thing is based on the weirdness of something that clearly it seems like they're bringing, but the verb just says taking. And the taking is for the rabbis, right away they go to lekach tov, the ultimate possession, the best possession is the Torah. Okay, so let's continue. So we have another mashal, another parable. Of course, it's to a king. When we have parables, they're often to a king. So this is similar to a king who had only one daughter. One of the kings came and took her and sought to go back to his land and to marry her. He said to him, "My daughter who I have given to you is my only one. I cannot bear to separate from her. But to tell you that you cannot take her is also impossible, since she is your wife. Rather, do me this favor, that everywhere you go, make me a small room, a kiton, so that I can live with you, for I cannot leave my daughter." Now, this might not be the ideal wedded situation. You don't always want your father-in-law to move in with you right when you get married, but it's an interesting idea, this love. "So said God to Israel, I have given you the Torah. I cannot bear to separate from her, and to tell you not to take her is also impossible. Rather, everywhere you go, make me one house so that I can live within it. As it is said, ve'asu li mikdash, and make me a sanctuary." Okay, so there's this beautiful, you said it's so cute over there? Is that what it is? You're having fun? Great. Okay, so our rabbis were joking about using this under the chuppah for couples. Maybe not the first thing you want to use. But in this relationship between God and Israel, God is not just attached to us, but how is it describing the Torah? I mean, how in relation to God? Yeah, God's child, God's daughter, right? That has been given away to us in marriage, right? And yes, Rabbi Schatz. Mm. Right. Well, I should have just given Rabbi Schatz the microphone, but I'll do my, it was well said. So Rabbi Schatz was saying this idea of the middleman sort of reminds her of giving something away to like a thrift shop, right? Something that was valuable to you, but will be more valuable to other people. That is part of the giving, that you feel like that somebody else is going to get better use and more appreciation out of it. And similar to the relationship of a father and daughter or son is that, the father or parent feels that this care and this attachment to their child, obviously, but they see that in their child's spouse, that they're going to see something different. They're going to get something new. They're going to appreciate that person in a different way that they can't. That is specifically part of that relationship. And similarly, we are given the Torah in a way. We're given it because we can appreciate it perhaps in a way that God, just having it as God's possession or daughter or whatever metaphor you want to use, won't allow it to be appreciated by the most people. Any other? Yes, Tom. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, totally. So Tom was saying similarly that that the Torah doesn't get to reach its full potential if it just is a heavenly device, right? It's similar to the midrashim of the angels saying like, "Don't give them that Torah; those people they won't appreciate it." And Moses comes up and says like, "This is made for us, right? It gets its the most use and the most value out of it when it's part of humanity's life." And similar to that, the same thing with the daughter is that you want to watch your child grow up to be able to to have these deeper connections that you have some kind of connection with, but in a way that you could never have. Yes. Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's great. Right. So we were saying that God is kind of retiring in a certain way, giving us some room. So it's that idea of God's like tzimtzum, right? Kind of making room for us to grow by giving the Torah and kind of backing away. Now, this midrash too seems to also have God backing away, but also not, right? God is part of the thing, and that's how they think they get. I think this midrash versus Tanhuma makes it a little more clear the connection, right? That the giving of the Torah, which preceded this parsha, is part of the process of building the Mishkan, right? That in order to give the Torah, God also needs, in giving it away, God also wants to be close with us, right? That God has sort of lost some, and close to the Torah, that God has lost some connection with the Torah as well as us. And that that we're building this Mishkan so that there is still that connection between God and the Torah, but on earth in our presence, not just in heaven. Yes, Jason. Right, great. So Jason was saying that in giving the Torah, God is perpetuating, God's belief in God, right? The teaching of God, and needs this place for that, for God's presence to be there and to come to life. And I think there's just this connection of that God has this connection to us, but also God is part of the Torah. And this space that we're creating in the midrash's idea is a space so that closeness between God and teaching and the propagation that it represents of God's law are still close together, but not in heaven, and very much in our presence. So we'll leave it there until next time, and we will continue with Mariv. Should I leave? Yeah. Oh, we should bench first too. Yeah, sorry. Benching is always good. Want to lead? Okay, Joey's going to lead us in Birkat. Share them out. Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Shir Hamalot Beshuv Adonai et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholamim Az Yamale Sechok Pinu Ul Shonenu Rina Az Yomeru Vagoim Higdil Adonai Lasoti Mele Higdil Adonai Lasoti Manu Hayinu Semechim Shuva Adonai et Shavitenu Ka'afikim Ba'negev Hazorim Bedima Berina Iktoru Haloch Yelechu Vacho No Se Meshech Hazara Bo Yavo Verina No Se Alumotab Tehilat Adonai Yedaber Pi Vivarech Kol Basarjim Kushulam Ba'ed Va'anachnu nevarech Yah Me'ata v'ad Hallelujah. Hodu Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto mi'emal gevurot Adonai yashmiya kol tehilato. Chave Ryan Varech.
Yehi Shem Adonai Barach Metavid Olam.
Yehi Shem Adonai Varach Metavid Olam Birshut Chave Ryan Varech El Hinu Shechal Numi Shalo.
Baruch Shechanu Shalom Tivo Chayinu.
Baruch Shechalnu or El Baruch Elohim Shechalnu Mishalo Tivo Chayinu. Baruch Shemo Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Hazan et Haolam Kulo B'Tuvo V'chein v'chesed u'vrachamim Hu noten lechem l'chol basar Ki le'olam chasto Uvtuvo hagadol, tamid lo chasar lanu ve'ayechsar lanu mazon le'olam ba'ed babur shemo hagadol, ki wazanu farnes lakol, umetiv lakol, umechin mazon, lechol beriotav asher bara, baruch atah Adonai, hazan et hakol.
we're going to continue with the evening service on page 264 in Lev Shalem, 281 Slim Shalom, and 200 in Sim Shalom. Please rise. ואורחו מחבר רבנו לישחית ברבה לשיבה פה ולעיר כל חבתו אדוני יושיע מלך יעננו מיום גורנו ברכו את אדוני המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. Can be seated. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בדברו אמרים וכל חוכמתך שנה ושנים דין וחליפת ומעביר יום ומביא לילה מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב והרבים אהבת עולם בית ישראל וחפת התורה מצוות חוקים ושוטים אהבתך אל תשים ממני לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך. Adonai Elohim Emed, V'mlekot Zov Yam Alinu Kiyod Adonai Elohim Emed, Adonai Yisrael Elohim Akinu Kohen Mekayim, Elni ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה מרים בני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נוראתי לו תוסף אלה מלכותך רוב עניך בוקר ים לפני משה זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל השכיבנו רעיון שלום ומידנו מלכנו חיים ופרסנו סקת שלום לך תקנינו ושמור צאתנו בואנו חיים שלום מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני כי המלכות שלך יום מעט תמלוך בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ועל כל מעשיו. חצי קדיש, page 269, 285, or 208. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעמד דברך קרתי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וימיכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, מגלה וזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רב מברך לעולם ולעולם היה. יברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרום וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, דוש ברכתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. The whispered Amidah is on page 270, 286, or 210. Please include the section concluding Shabbat. We continue with Chatzi Kaddish, page 279, 292, or 682. התגדל ויגדל שמי רבה, ועמד יברח קראתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון, וימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלל בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם המאה. יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתנועם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. וינו אדוני אלוהינו עלינו מעשה ידינו כהן עלינו מעשה ידינו כהן יושב בסתרי מצא שדי לעולם. אומר לנו מחסי יוצא דהרת קצל חל פחש ודבר Orechemi must be over Beshuati, Orechemi must be over Beshuati. We're going to continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 280, 294, or 688. Hikadal vikada shemer abamen be'alma divrak kirtei v'yamlich b'chutei b'chayichon v'yamechon v'chayedechol b'Yisrael b'agalav izman karim v'imru amen. Yei shemer abam varach l'olam ve'amaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yidbar v'yitamam v'yidaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemer l'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tishbachata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Titgabal tzlodon v'avdon l'chol Yisrael kodam v'undi v'shmaya v'imru amen. Yei shalom rav min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Aleinu, page 281. Aleinu l'shavech adon hakol atet God zevashit shalos and agav l'sam Mishkan. Kagatu b'tor dechanayim l'cholam va'ed v'nehem arvyanay l'melcha kol haaretz b'yamahu yadonai echad u'shmo echad. Kaddish Yatom, page 282, 298, or 698. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah. Amen. V'yalmad divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabah mevarach la'alam alamei alamaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. All right, we're going to conclude with Havdalah. I think we're looking for matches. I thought Rabbi Schatz just abandoned me, but that's okay. What? I heard matches. We don't got no stinking matches. So just give us a second while we get our matches together. What, matches? You didn't say matches? Oh, light up. You could get it to the heaters. Yeah, that'll work. Are you gonna stand here or stand?
You're not going to lead it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I know. Thank you.
Okay. Hine el Yeshuati eftach velo evchad ki oziv zimrad Adonai vayili li Yeshua ushavtem mayim v'sason mimayne Yeshua Adonai Yeshua alamcha v'chatecha sela Adonai Tzevaot Imanu Miskav lanu Elohei Yaakov Selah Adonai Tzevaot Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach Adonai Yoshia Hamelech Yaneinu V'yom Koreinu Yehudim Hai Torah V'simcha v'sason V'kar kenti elanu Kos Yeshua desa Uv'shem Adonai ekra Hay-ya-da-ya-da-da-ya-ya Hay-ya-da-ya-da-ya-da-ya Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech ben Yisrael amim ben yom hashvi'i l'sheish yemei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Ooh, that was a long one. That's a good sign. Hamavdil ben kodesh lecho, chatoteinu yimcho, zareinu v'chasbeinu yarbe yarbe kacho, v'cha kochavim balayla. Zareinu v'chasbeinu yarbe yarbe kacho, cha kochavim balayla. Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov. Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu atishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu agiladi, bimera ve'yamenu, yavo eleinu. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. Shavua tov, everybody. Yasher koach for being here. Lovely learning with you. Have a great week.
Yasher koach to David for leading us in Mariv and a beautiful teaching. This week, just so that people know in terms of daily minyan, Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning will be 7:15 because it's Rosh Chodesh. So it'll be a great, very early morning. So please join us, whether on Zoom or in person. And then do not forget to sign up for Kol Tefillah, the special Beth Am pricing, and anything you're able to join. We would love to have you. Shavua tov. See you all soon. It was really hot under the